everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for One Montgomery and Montgomery Mosaic's event entitled Montgomery Speaks Out Against Racism. Montgomery Mosaic is a discussion group that started after a bias crime took place in our town. The One Montgomery Committee was created by the Township to build connections and bridges of understanding. Tonight, we wanted to highlight the voices of diverse community members as we contend with the pain of our present moment. A country and a community shocked into action by the senseless killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis police custody and acknowledging the many lives lost to anti-Black racism, including Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. Tonight's program includes a candlelight vigil. The idea for this event and vigil came from two young people, Dia Seti and Ananya Sampat, so I want to thank them for their initiative. I would also like to let you know on behalf of the entire Township Committee that on Thursday night we passed a resolution condemning all acts of racism and racist violence, including police violence, throughout the country and calling for dialogue, unity, and healing. I will be the MC for the evening. It was originally meant to be Shelley Bell, who's another member of the One Montgomery Committee, but she had a family emergency, so we hope that everything is well with her. So our first speaker is Shelley Wallace, a Montgomery High School graduate and student at Overland College.
Hi, everyone. So recently I was in, for those of you who don't know, I'm Shelley Wallace, as she said, and I was in the paper, the Montgomery newspaper, and the Princeton paper, which I just found out, where I was quoted for saying that I want to be a part of the change. And that's something that I meant that. Being a Montgomery student, I think I've had my first racial issue when I was in Village Elementary School. And ever since then, it was a repeat of events. And that's something that I think needs to be fixed in our school system because no student should have to go through that. And being a Black student in Montgomery, there's not many of us. So there's many times where you feel ostracized and left out because you look different. And I think that this could be fixed if we were able to make adjustments to how students are disciplined when it comes to this type of thing. Because I know through my experience, I've always felt where I never ever received an apology. And I would see that student in the hallways the next day after something that seemed huge to me. Seems like the school just kind of dismissed it. And I don't think that's okay. And another way we can definitely fix this is by improving our education, like what we learn in history. I know I've learned about the Revolutionary War several times during my time as a student, but we haven't talked about Black history, which is definitely a part of American history. And I think that's where the lack of education and ignorance comes in, that these students don't realize how big of a part Black history is in our American history. They don't see that as an importance. And that is something that needs to be stressed in our schools, not just in high school either. Like it should be taught while we're young. That's when we'll take in the most information and, continue it through our high school. And we shouldn't also leave out, depending on if you're taking APs or CPs or honors, they shouldn't be learning different things. I know that several AP students have an advantage in what they learn in history, while CP students are left out. They actually learned about Black history while others didn't, and that's not fair either. I think there should be some equal level in how we learn this history from this point forward, and we can avoid these racial issues in our school district. And also online, as we've seen, there have been quite a few events like that on Instagram, Twitter, you name it. And I don't know. And I also hope that the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery aren't just part of a trend where people are upset now. I think that we all need to be upset, not just now, but even in the future. This shouldn't just be something where it's brief and we all feel upset at this 1 week and then next week it's on to something else. This needs to be something that we continue to bring up and recognize, and hopefully that'll bring change in this town. And I'm willing to, of course, speak with anyone, make a plan with someone if they feel the need to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tariq Battle. He's a father in the community. That was how he wanted to be recognized, but I also wanted to mention that he's a member of the Montgomery Township Planning Board.
Good evening, everyone. You all put me in a really, really difficult position to have to follow Shelley Wallace. She's a shining star from this community. lovely young lady. If you haven't had the chance to meet her and engage with her, please do. She's fantastic. I'm not just saying that because I've known her since she was born, but she's also just a very great young lady. And second, I'd like to really thank everybody, all the young people who have taken the initiative to show your support for the Black community. In this specific event, in this specific case of events, this is about the Black community and about the Black community here in Montgomery. I was completely surprised that an event like this was being put together because I've been here for about 16 years in this community, and diversity has always been an issue. I think that there wasn't a racial event in the 2018. There were racial events every year that I've been here, specifically toward the Black community. One of them, I was a part of a Black parents group for many years, just because we wanted to try to see some more diversity in the way the teachers and the administration are appointed or voted into this community. So we just wanted our voice to be heard. And, you know, those things led to some success, but in the other cases, not so much. And I don't want to sit here and sort of bash Montgomery. It's been really good to myself and my family. My son is graduating high school this year. He is on his way to Rutgers University, my alma mater. But it hasn't been an easy road. And it's been really easy for many of the people in the community to, to see you every day. I'm always involved with my children. I'm always involved with their sports and their activities in the school as much as I can be. And part of that is because I'm a little nosy, but more importantly, I need to be there. I need to be around because I need people to recognize that my children are not cast-offs. And it sounds a little harsh, but that is a lot of the treatment that they've received. There are not so many Black children in this community. And, it becomes really easy for the majority teachers to take a look at these kids and think, okay, well, they don't have that much support. And if I'm really upset, I can just tee off on this kid. And it's happened. And I'm not just making these things up. It's a sad reality. And one thing that I've been really recognizing recently is that, with the absence of accountability, morals just sort of go out of the window. And if no one's watching you, you have no responsibility or no need to do the right thing. And I've witnessed that several times. But I don't want to continue to go on about all these things. I just want to be honest. And I think that that's what my intention is being here tonight, is that I want to provide an honest assessment and an honest opportunity for everybody to know exactly what we're dealing with. These events, and I'd like to say their names like Chile, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Tiana, I forget, what was her name? Breonna, right? So all of these people, it's an important time, and we are all feeling completely horrible about it. We had to watch someone murdered on television. For all intents and purposes, this is television. We feel the support. I definitely feel the support, and I appreciate all the people being involved in paying attention. But we need to take the next step. We need to really take a look at ourselves and make sure that we understand that it's not okay to go back to the status quo tomorrow. We have to recognize our community members. We have to, be inclusive of our community members. Be inclusive of kids that don't look like us. And I'll end it with the thing that I always talked about whenever one of the greatest murals I used to see at the the lower middle school was all the pictures of the teachers that greeted you as you walked into the door out of the parking lot. And every time I walked in there, I would want to see more Black faces. And I could have just imagined that if I was a child going to that school, that probably would be something that I wanted to see too. And then I looked through a little bit further and I didn't see that many Asian teachers. You know, I didn't see anybody that looked like the people that were members of this community. And I think that's something that we really need to continue to try and make a larger effort to make sure that these things happen for our community, because being included is everything. Is one of our is part of the hierarchy of needs, right? We want to be a part of, and that. And I just want to end it on that. I think that we have some great community members that do their best to make everyone feel included, but we can do better, and we will do better. And I want to, and I'm glad that you all put this together, and I'm glad to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Amanagani, who is going to sing for us.
Everyone, as Mayor Sadaf said, I am Amanagani, and I will be singing Waiting on the World to Change, because in our society, we need a little bit of change, so. Me and all my friends, we're all misunderstood. They say we stand for nothing, and there's no way we ever could. Now we see everything that's going wrong with the world and those who lead it. We just feel like we don't have the means to rise above and beat it. So we keep waiting, waiting on the world to change. We keep on waiting, waiting on the world to change. It's hard to beat the system when we're standing at a distance. So we keep waiting, waiting on the world to change. Now if we had the power to bring our neighbors home from war, they would never miss the Christmas, no more ribbons on the door. And when you trust your television, what you get is what you got. Cause when they own the information, no, they can bend it all they want. So they are waiting, waiting on the world to change. We keep on waiting, waiting on the world to change. It's not that we don't care, we just know the fight ain't fair. So we keep waiting, waiting on the world to change. Still waiting, waiting on the world to change. We keep on waiting, waiting on the world to change. Waiting on the world to change. We keep waiting, waiting on the world to change. We keep on waiting, waiting on the world to change. Waiting on the world, waiting on the world, waiting on the world to change. Waiting on the world to change. Waiting on the world, waiting on the world to change. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Amana. All right, our next remarks are from Patrick Todd. He's a retired detective and sergeant from the Essex County Prosecutor's Office and currently works at the College Board as Associate Director of Test Security. He, his wife, and two sons have been in Montgomery since 2017.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mayor, for setting me up to go behind that wonderful performance. I thought about my remarks, and I kind of had some prepared remarks, but some of the things I just want to speak to from my heart. Black people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's rough. I mean, it's tired. And Mr. Battle can probably testify as well. It is hard to be a Black male in this country right now. It is tough and it is dangerous. I worked in law enforcement for 25 years. I know policing is a tough business. Use of force comes into play sometimes, but it is absolutely getting out of hand in this country. And it has been for a long, long time. As the mayor said, I've been a Montgomery resident for almost 3 years now. And I will tell you from my own experience, when I moved here, within the first 2 weeks, I had my license plate run 5 different times. And how do I know that? Because my license plate, a vehicle I had was a work car. It was they were confidential plates. And every time that plate is run, it gets reported to the state police, and then they report it to my office. First 2 weeks, 5 different occasions. And it was one specific occasion where I had the windows were tinted. So that may have been an issue. But there was one specific time where my windows were down, so the officer clearly could see who I was, and he was sitting in the parking lot or the driveway of the car wash, and I actually watched him, and 10 minutes later, my phone rang and said, "Hey, what are you doing on Route 206, blah, blah, blah." So we just need to do better in all facets of life. School, Shelley referred to before about the lack of Black history being taught in schools, and that's important. Black history is more than Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. It's a lot more, a lot deeper, and that is a systemic problem in our educational system that we don't teach. That is one issue right there. Personally, I've had conversations with people at the schools where Black History Month, they talk about MLK, Rosa Parks, and maybe 1 or 2 authors. That's not enough. Black History Month should be celebrated as much as the other ethnicities in this community. Other thing I want to talk about is diversity. Montgomery is a diverse community, but we have to be careful in saying diverse, because when I can go into a school and count the number of students that look like my son on one hand, that's not diverse, in my opinion. That is just not diverse. My son had some issues in 7th grade and 6th grade and 7th grade being called the N-word. Do I think it was handled appropriately? Probably not, but I try to get it addressed. So again, those are the things from the heart. There's just 2 quick things I wanted to share. Those of you who, I do participate in a couple of Montgomery Facebook groups, so you may have heard this before, but I think they're both bear repeating. First one is, for all my lives matter, folks. When the Boston Marathon was bombed, everybody's profile picture went Boston strong. Nobody said all cities strong. When the Las Vegas shooting happened, people changed their profiles and said staying with Vegas. Nobody said, well, what about my city? What about the people that got shot in my city? Have you ever seen someone counter a breast cancer post with, well, what about colon cancer? But for some reason, if someone says Black Lives Matter, it turns into all-inclusive, all lives matter. It's not an either or proclamation. When there's a crisis, we have always rallied around that particular group. It doesn't discredit or diminish any other group. It just brings awareness and support to the group that needs attention. Second thing I want to read is, as I said before, we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And Black people around this country, including the Black people in Montgomery, we are hurting right now. So this is something that, this is not original, but it's something that a friend of mine shared on Facebook. It says, your Black friend is trying to be okay. Your Black friend in the past 30 days has watched a Black man murdered while jogging, Ahmaud Arbery, a Black woman murdered while sleeping, Breonna Taylor, and a Black man murdered by a Minneapolis police officer, George Floyd. Your Black friend has listened to the President of the United States use segregationist words as threats. Your Black friend is trying to be okay. Don't ask them about looting. Don't chastise them about rioting. Don't tell them that all lives matter. Don't minimize their fear. Don't bring up black crime. Don't ask what about Chicago. Don't say, if you just act like Oprah, Obama, Colin Powell, Denzel, Will Smith. Don't judge them. Your Black friend is trying to be okay. Listen to your Black friend. Empathize with your Black friend. Support your Black friend. Pray for your Black friend. Pray with your Black friend. Just let your Black friend know you really care. Your Black friend will remember who truly had their back during this difficult time. They will remember who was more concerned about a looted Target. They will remember you posted a thinly veiled and racially offensive meme. They will remember you calling looters savages. They will remember your silence about their Black life and the Black lives of others. It's real easy. Do whatever you can to help your Black friend out because your Black friend is trying to be okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next remarks are from our Deputy Mayor in Montgomery Township, Marvin Schuldiner.
Mayor, thank you very much. I'm very humbled to be here tonight and to speak. Honestly, I kind of feel a little inadequate in speaking, particularly listening to and learning from all of the people who have already spoken, and I'm sure the ones who will follow me. 2020 usually stands for clarity. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case for this year. So far, we've had an impeachment trial of the president, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and now social unrest because of mistreatment of Black Americans. The last of those is far overdue. African Americans have been mistreated for far too long, and I'm happy to see people from all over America rise up for change. Let's do this the right way. We need to keep the protests peaceful. We need for law enforcement and now the military to respect the First Amendment rights of the protesters. We need better education and discussion of the issues. We need to change society so that Black Americans don't have to fear interactions with law enforcement. We need to change our criminal justice system so that people of color are not filling our world-leading prison systems while others are handed far lighter sentences. Thank you for being here tonight, both to remember victims such as George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and Christian Cooper, and to work for the changes that our society needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Maureen Daniels. She's a Montgomery resident of 21 years and a middle school PTO board member.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here and thank you all for joining us. I'm a little emotional right now, so bear with me for a minute. I wrote my speech because I wanted to let you all know that I wrote this in response to friends of mine who are not of African descent who reached out to me and said, what can I do to help? We don't know what to do. What are your suggestions? And so I just want to read this and hopefully folks who are not Black will come, will do these things. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin Luther King Jr. said these words on that day of the March on Washington in the year 1963. I was born that year. It has been about 57 years since then, and it has now become my dream. I am Maureen Daniels. My husband, Howard, and I have lived in Montgomery since 1999. We have 3 boys who are triplets and are currently 7th graders in Montgomery Upper Middle School. Since the tragic deaths of Mr. Ahmaud Arbery and Mr. George Floyd, the atmosphere in our home has been transformed into a thick fog of sadness anger, and foreboding. I'm sure there is the same feeling of hopelessness in every Black family in our country. I have had conversations with my sons about race relations and racism that I didn't think I would need to have in the year 2020, but they were necessary due to these tragic events. No, these events didn't happen in our town, but these tragic events are still happening in different corners and towns in our nation. Many of you are asking, what can we do? What can we do to foster supportive, safe, and more just environment for African American and Black families in our communities? Well, more than ever, this is a time for our neighbors, family, and friends who are not African Americans or of African descent to have conversations with their Black colleagues, co-workers, students, members, friends, neighbors, and ask about their experiences of inequality and injustice. Then you can completely understand our struggle and pain and why we still feel like second-class citizens in our own land. Stand with us to bring about change to police training and change to eliminate unjust treatment to our Black American brothers and sisters. Stand with us and get involved with social justice organizations. Write and or call our local, state, and national leaders to bring into law changes that will stop these horrific day-to-day experiences that are happening to our Black brothers and sisters. Change can only happen if we stand together, committed, and demand change. I have a dream that little Black boys and little Black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls as sisters and brothers. Let us not let this dream remain a dream. Let us make it reality. And that's what I have to say today.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a poem that's going to be presented by Minkio Chinet, former president of the Montgomery Board of Education, and she wanted you to know that she's a hugger.
Thank you, Sadaf. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful opportunity. And I do miss hugging my sister, Maureen. You know, you're my sister. Yes. Before I read my poem, it's a very short poem, so I just want to say some stuff, and I just want to reflect what else has said in this forum. Shelley, I don't know you, but I am so hopeful because we have a young generation, young, strong lady like you guys. You keep going doing what you're doing. Elle, I'm a very nosy person too. That's why I got into PTA, and then I ended up serving Board of Education, and here I am. I can never be shut out. I want to share experience with you guys. Back in 2004, I was walking back to my apartment, and I saw this young Black boy getting picked on by 3 other boys. I don't know them, but it looked pretty dangerous. So I stopped and I said, hey guys, why are you picking this guy? He's size twice you guys, or he's gonna beat you up, meaning the Black boy. I figured he had some special need or something because he was very quiet and he looked frightened. So I hold his hand and I said, are you okay? And he just, shake his head. And the other 3 boys accused me saying, why you care? You're not his mom. The second boy goes, you're not Black. What do you know? That really shocked me, and I didn't know what to say. Yes, I'm not Black. I don't know what to tell you guys. I don't know what I can do to make you feel better. I wish I can give you guys a hug and say it's okay. We'll be better, because I do believe in love. I do believe in better system. And if we cannot, we got to believe in education and we got to make it better. New Jersey is #1 in education, guys. We got to make it better. I'd like to reflect on some of the education issue you guys brought up. Yes, I definitely agree. We have to train our educator more about history that is involved in the Blacks. Celebrating February as a Black History Month, it's not enough. It has to be embedded in history more in details, and that has not happened. And to be honest with you, I have 2 daughters doing the project right now. I actually had to dig in a lot of detailed information about it with them, and I'm studying with them again. And I realized how the gap and the inequality in this, it's a social economic justice problem, and it's just everything. But little by little optimism and positivity, I think we can together make it happen. So for that, I'd like to read you what I wrote. There is no one race better than the other. There's no one love better than the other kind. There's no religion teaching hate and kill but love. Let us embrace each other with love, compassion, and empathy. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. When I see you, I'm going to give you a big hug.
Thank you so much. Our next remarks are from Donetta Bishop Johnson, who's the founder of the Allegra School of Music and Arts and a community organizer. You're on mute, Donetta.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. This conversation is essential. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I am angry. And here's why. It's just been a rough couple of weeks, and honestly, it's been a rough life, and it's been a rough 400 years. Black people have worked tirelessly in this country, building this country, marching, protesting, opening up the doors for women and other people. But we have not been able to reap the rewards of our efforts. And I am the mother of 3 Black men, and I was terrified from the moment they were born, and I'm terrified today, honestly. And it's really unacceptable. So I first want to address what this is. The death of these men are the tip of the iceberg. Underneath the iceberg are low unemployment rate, opportunity hoarding, systemic, structural organisms that are designed to not include Black people specifically. Lack of education, poor healthcare. Is there any reason why that Black people are dying from COVID-19 at 2 to 5 times the rate of anyone else? It's not because there's something inherently wrong with our DNA. It's that we are worn down. We are worn down, and we just don't have the same access. So I love each and everybody on this call who wants to make it better. But honestly, what I have to tell you is that this is not an African American or Black people problem. This is a problem of racism. This is a problem of power. And honestly, you can't look at people who are the ones who are the victims and look to them for the solution. It's sort of like asking an abused woman, how do you propose you get this man to stop beating you? Like, she shouldn't have to come up with the solution. The solution is in the hands of white people. I'm going to say that again. The solution is in the hand of white people and people who are in power. You must decide what type of world you want to live in. Because everybody, you can't, it's not sustainable to have compassion or offer me charity as a Black person. How can I help you get through this? You can't. It's not sustainable. As humans, we're all inherently self-interested, right? And so in order for you to own this and to really affect change, you've got to see it as your problem, your America, your soul, okay? There's been no lack of information about what your Black friends are going through, all right? We talk about it in our music, in our poetry, in our rap. We are very loud and boisterous people. We are noisy about the pain that we are going through. So it's unacceptable for anybody to say they don't know what we are going through. Okay, so everyone has got to decide what type of America do you want to live in, all right? And you've got to do it for yourself, not for me, because there's only so much you're going to help me. You can help me for a week or a month, or you can write a check, but you've got to decide, this is wrong. This is not okay. And I can't fix this, okay? Because I have yelled, I have protested since I'm a wee girl, like Shelley. I have marched. I have done everything that I can in my power to fix this. So we're all gonna have to fix this. But don't look to me to be on the front edge of that march, because y'all ain't listening to me. Nobody's listening to me, all right? So do this for the America that you want your children to live in. If you don't want them to see a Black man yanked out of his car and summarily executed by the state with people watching and it being videotaped, and for him to be so casual because he knew good and well nothing was going to happen as a result of it. It's been done time and time and time again. All right, so the change, we've got to give up some of our opportunity. We've got to give up some of our comfortable. And if I'm making you comfort, if I'm making y'all uncomfortable, good. Do something about this. Of course we will help, but we can't do it. We've been doing it for 400 years. We have been fighting for 400 years. So the world is watching what America will do, each and every one of us. There are Black Lives Matter marches in Australia, in Israel, all across Africa, in India, because people are going through the same pain. It is not unique. It is not a uniquely American problem, but it is a problem, and we've got to give up something if we want to get something. So let's be real here. I need for all of you to work on solutions, because I cannot turn over this world as it is to my grandchildren and worry that they are going to suffer the same consequences of being profiled and abused and bullied and picked on simply because of the color of their skin, regardless of your economic strata, regardless of your education, regardless. You're in danger in one of the wealthiest, most well-educated countries in the world. All right, so what I want each of you to think about is when we get off of this call, right, and we feel like we've done something because we want to support Black people, like what are we gonna do next? All right, so what solutions are we gonna come up with? And I guarantee you they will cause you discomfort, but we've gotta make it, because come 20 years down the road, I don't want Chili's children, I don't want anybody's grandchildren to have to watch this horrendous life that we're all living. And it's not just me. Your soul is damaged if you are a bystander to this. Silence is complicity, and silence is violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As I watch these protests and events unfolding around the nation, I am happy to see such impressive turnouts for something, unfortunately, that we as a society should not have to deal with after all these years. It's 2020, not 1620. No matter how far we progress in every area of society, racism and inequality are plagues that we just can't seem to get past. No one is born a racist. It is taught. It is systemic. Many people are guilty, and most are complicit and have no idea. If I reflect upon my own culture, South Asians are just as guilty as anyone else. After having been ruled and oppressed by the British for so long, multiple generations of Indians have grown up thinking white is superior. In our culture, light skin is idolized. Dark skin is frowned upon. Parents rub all sorts of concoctions and creams on children's faces in hopes of lightening their skin and making their eyes look larger. Advertisers regularly feature fair-skinned models. I recall events during my childhood when adults would tell me to cross the street to avoid black people. Ask any of them and they will deny it. That's because they don't even realize the racism they've been taught. It is ingrained. Some of these are microaggressions. Some are blatant. A small thing here, a little thing there, another thing there. It all adds up to an environment where you're taught to believe that the lighter your skin color, the better off you are in life. This should not be the case. Fortunately, the current generation of South Asians understand this and are willing to speak out against it. I hear stories from friends and others of black parents having to tell their children to be aware of their surroundings whenever they leave their house, because at any moment they could be blamed or accused of something. They may be assumed guilty simply because of their skin color, guilty by being black. That is a message I cannot simply ever imagine having to tell my children. No parent should have to warn their children like that. Each of us has a role to play in opposing racism, injustice, and oppression. In order to eliminate racism, xenophobia, and all other forms of inequality, we must take action. It is our responsibility as a community, as a society, and as human beings to support and amplify the voices of the oppressed. What we allow is what will continue. We can no longer allow these injustices. Enough is enough. We must take a stand. I'd like to wrap up with some powerful words from my niece, Radhika. All lives don't matter until Black lives matter. The color of your skin gives you privilege. The color of your skin gives you safety. The color of your skin gives you a job. Theirs doesn't. If you are silent, you are not the solution. You are complicit. Black men are not a threat when scoring for your favorite football team. They are a threat when using a $20 bill. They are a threat when running in the morning. They are a threat because they are 17 years old. You feel safe when they cannot breathe. You feel safe when they are lying on the ground. You feel safe when he delivers your mail, but not when he is in the White House. Right now, if you are feeling attacked by my words, if you are feeling uncomfortable, if you are feeling targeted, you are not the solution, but the problem. I am not Black, but I see you. I am not Black, but I hear you. I am not Black, but I mourn with you. I am human, and I fight for Black lives.
Thank you. So I'd like to now turn it over to Ananya to lead the Vigil segment of the program, and then we'll return for a closing song as well. So Ananya, go ahead.
Yeah, so for the Vigil, what I kind of envisioned was that we would all light candles with our respective families and go stand outside for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. The reason I chose 8 minutes and 46 seconds is that's the amount of time that George Floyd was pinned down by a police officer before he passed away. So I hope that this allows us to honor those lives that were lost. And before we do that, I quickly want to read out the names of lives that were lost to Black lives that were lost to police brutality since 2014 and Eric Garner, because I think it's important to know who we're mourning for and know the names of the people whose lives were lost. So if we could all have a moment of silence for these people as I read out their names. Eric Garner, John Crawford III, Michael Brown, Azal Ford, Michelle Cousseau, Tanisha Anderson, Dante Parker, Laquan McDonald, George Mann, Akai Gurley, Tamira Rice, Romaine Brisbane, Jerem Reed, Frank Smart, Natasha McKenna, Tony Robinson, Anthony Hill, Maya Hall, Philip White, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, William Chapman II, Alexia Christian, Brendan Glenn, Victor Manuel LaRosa, Jonathan Sanders, Freddie Blue, Joseph Mann, Salvador Ellswood, Sandra Bland, Michael Sabi, Brian Keith Day, Albert Joseph Davis, Darius Stewart, Billy Ray Davis, Samuel DeBose, Christian Taylor, Troy Robinson, Felix Kumi, Keith Harrison McLeod, Junior Prosper, Lamonte Jones, Patterson Brown, Anthony Ashford, Alonzo Smith, Tyree Crawford, India Kager, Levant Biggs, Michael Lee Marshall, Jamar Clark, Richard Perkins, Nathaniel Harris Pickett, Benny Lee Tigner, Miguel Espinal, Michael Noel, Kevin Matthews, Betty Jones, Keith Childress Jr., Janet Wilson, Randy Nelson, Anthony Scott, Wendell Celestine, David Joseph, Christopher Davis, Marco Loud, Peter Gaines, Tori Robinson, Darius Robinson, Kevin Hicks, Mary Trixio, DeMarcus Seamer, Willie Tillman, Terrell Thomas, Sylville Smith, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Terrence Crutcher, Paul O'Neill, Alteria Woods, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Ronell Foster, Stephen Clark, Antoine Rose II, Botham Jean, Pamela Turner, Dominique Clayton, Tatiana Jefferson, Christopher Whitfield, Christopher McCorvey, Eric Reason, Michael Lorenzo Dean, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. So now if you could all take a few minutes, go light a candle, and stand outside with your families for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yes, so everybody can do that. I think let's plan to reconvene at 9 p.m. for a closing song, and then if other people, we can end the formal program there, and if other people want to speak, and I've seen that there's some questions, those who want to stay on after the song, maybe those of us who want to can stay on for some more conversation and remarks. Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for participating in the vigil. And I wanted to ask for our last part of the formal presentation, Reverend Jeff Knoll, who's a member of the One Montgomery Committee and has been really involved with this initiative for the past several years, to wrap up our program.
Well, good evening to everyone. And I want to start by saying thank you to all of the people of color who came on this evening and spoke as panelists and participated in this discussion. As many of you have said this evening, this isn't your work to do, it's our work to do. It's the work of white people in this country to do. And as much as I can at this point, I recognize that and want to affirm that. This week, I heard a recording the New York Times reported on from, I think it was North Carolina, and it was two African-American men in the middle of a protest arguing with one another about what to do that evening. And there was a man in his 40s, and he was angry and he was ready to burn the city down. And there was a man in his 30s arguing with him and saying, you know, we can't do that. If we do that, then the 16-year-old kid, and he pulled a 16-year-old kid, and he's going to be here 20 years later, and he's going to be doing the same thing. And I have a 5-year-old son, and he's going to be doing the same thing. And he said, you have to find a better way. You know, we have to find a better way. And the reporter who was reporting on this story, she said that she didn't believe that 31-year-old man, you know, that he did not have hope, you know, that there's this option or this idea that's out there that there's either peaceful protests or there's violent protests, and that we have to choose one or the other, and one's effective and the other is not effective. And that's not the way it is. Neither have been effective, right? Peaceful protests happen and nothing changes. Violent protests happen and people put off those calls for justice and say, look at them, they're violent, ignore what they're calling for. And in hearing that reporting and thinking about it, it's just, and hearing your words, it's clear that nothing will change until white people do something about it. And so I agree with you, and I hear what you're saying, that it is our problem. It is our problem in terms of being a Christian and a white person in so many ways. We are the ones who invented racism. We invented racism to justify our owning of black slaves. We are the ones who have continued to uphold the systems that do the violence and bring the injustices and cause our society to be a society where I have every opportunity put before me. And when my parents tell me that I can be anything that I want to be and do anything that I want to do, it's real and it's true. And if you were to say that to your kids, you have to say it knowing that you don't truly believe it, right? And that's tragic. And I'm sorry for it. I'm deeply sorry for it. Despite the fact that our tradition and our being white Christians, that we are the source of the problem, our Christian tradition teaches and recognizes and believes that the Bible reveals God to be, in a particular way, the God of the destitute, the God of the abused, the God of those who are trampled by injustice. And I want to affirm tonight that if anyone wants to call themselves a Christian in this country, they must stand for justice, and they must stand against the injustices that we are witnessing in the past few weeks and months and decades and centuries here in the United States. What the Bible reveals is that Black lives matter to God and Black lives matter to Christians. And that if you don't believe that or can't affirm that, then you're not reading the same Bible or worshiping the same God that I am. This evening, I want to ask that God would help us to join together. I agree with you all that it is our problem. It is white people's problem. It is we need to be the source of the solution here, but we all need to work in this together, because it's also the case that I can shut off the news and my people can shut off the news and pretend like this isn't a problem. And we need your voices. We need your voices to call us to account, and we need your voices to help us understand what injustices exist and to help us do that work. We also need God's help. So this evening, I'm going to sing Blowing in the Wind by Bob Dylan. Within our church tradition, we're in Pentecost. It's a time when we think about the Holy Spirit's role in our lives as Christians. And I don't know what Bob Dylan was thinking when he wrote that the answer is blowing in the wind, but my prayer is that the wind of God, the Holy Spirit, would move in all of us and move in the hearts of white America to mobilize and to make a difference in this world. So here's my song. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they are forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? sky. Yes, and how many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? Well, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Thank you so much, Reverend Knoll. So I am so thankful to all the speakers who joined us today. I'm so thankful to all the protesters who are making their voices heard. And we have a lot of work to do as a society, and I am fully committed to being a part of that. I know that these conversations will continue. On behalf of the municipality, we're going to have a discussion group and session for members of the Black community with our police department coming up. So if anybody is watching this call or wants to be a part of that conversation, please be in touch with me, and we will get that started. And I'm just very thankful and hope, and we have to make a change. There's no option. And I guess we will conclude the formal part of the program there. I'm very mindful of everyone's time who's given of their time to be part of this event this evening. But I think that there are some people who have some questions. We had extra speakers because I didn't exactly know how this event was going to go. It was beautiful with everyone's comments and very powerful. So if anybody needs to sign off or chooses to sign off at this point, I completely understand. But I think some of us can stay on and maybe make some more remarks or make some more comments. So thank you. Good night to everyone who's getting off the call now.
Sadaf?
Yes.
By the way, guys, nice meeting you. If I never met you guys, sorry, I was being busy volunteering everywhere. This is a great conversation. I learned so much listening to you guys. And I saw someone on the chat saying, we need to start and accept that this is not okay. And I agree. And I think we did that today. We all expressed that we're not going to take this. This is not okay. So then how we move on from here? What can we do to make the change from our end? I cannot wait till later. I cannot wait till next president. This is not just one person changing. I think we need to change now here. So what do you suggest that we do? I've been reading your comments and answers, Chris, Chili, and Dia. You guys said some stuff that kind of made me to think that we can do. We can make suggestions to Board of Ed. We can write a letter to Department of Education, the New Jersey Department of Education. They can help us to change the curriculum. I mean, we can start petitioning. We can work with the law enforcement to do some sort of a community outreach program in terms of educating our students. I think this is the only way we can change. I mean, education is such a key to change this component, the part that we can use our capability. I don't know how else I can help or I can do to make this change. So that will be my suggestion to this group, and maybe you guys can, help Sadaf to, literate that more in detail later. And another suggestion would be, you guys have some sort of a thread on the website or somewhere, park all your educational materials to read, because sometimes I cannot find stuff that I like to read more about. Maybe I'm not, Google, sharp like Chin Patel. But you know what I mean? I wish you guys can help us to understand and try to find my way to help or make the change for my America. Make the change for my daughter's America.
So Minkio, just let me ask a clarification. You want educational materials like supplemental information about Black history, that sort of thing, to be easily accessible at the district's website or at the municipal website or something of that nature?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the district website because they probably have to go through.
Sure.
Yes.
But maybe the Montgomery Together, for example,
Yes.
that initiative
Yes.
that we're doing.
Because
yes.
it's not just, this is reading material for everyone who wishes to read. It's not necessarily.
Well, I think that Minkio, you made some great points, right? And you're suggesting, I think by virtue of you suggesting that you'd like to learn more about Black history, Black culture. I think that's one of the major things that will move the conversation forward if more people are interested in understanding who we are. A lot of the times these people, there are, I had a disappointing conversation today. I had a lot of great conversations, but I had a disappointing conversation today with a white gentleman that I considered, he was a coworker. And he never said anything about Black Lives Matter. He never said anything about any of the atrocities we've been witnessing. And I work with this guy every day. The first thing that he said to me or communicated to me was an interview by some woman who brought up statistics that showed that maybe Black people were not being targeted by police brutality. And there were statistics to support it. And I just couldn't have that conversation because if that's the first thing that you think of, defending what's happening for us, then we don't have anything to talk about. So I think by virtue of you suggesting that you'd like to learn more about us and our culture and our history, that's a good start. But I think taking it one step further, do you see how simple it was for you to suggest the difficulty you would have to place the reading materials about Black history on the district website, right? Automatically, you knew that's not going to happen. So let me put it somewhere lower or somewhere else that's more accessible or that's easier to do. And then who knows who's going to watch that or have access to it? Or who knows if it's actually going to do anything? And I think that's a larger issue that, and that's that sort of, I think that's what's part of a larger part of the issue is that we automatically give in when it comes to us. And not we, other people automatically give in when it comes to us. It's never going to happen on a district site. So we'll give you this small site and we've done our part. You're welcome. So, and I'm not saying that's your intent, but a lot of times in many other cases, that's the reality. That's how it goes. So what I suggest is that we fight harder for each other.
Okay.
Fight to get it on the district site. Maybe understand where people would access it. Who would access it? Do a little bit more research on figuring out what would be a good idea. So I appreciate you. Honestly, I do. But I just really wanted to take that opportunity to point out that these things happen.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you. So we will raise it up.
Yeah. If that's the idea, and if that would work, fight for that because it's that important.
Yeah. It's important to me too because I want any students willing to learn. I think they should read and they should learn. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I think that's very important for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I just comment on the education issue? All right. So, I run a school of music and art. So education is, part and parcel of what I do every day. You have to consider the educational system in the United States is a legacy system. And the purpose of education as it was created in the United States is to educate white boys and girls so that they can feel good about themselves, so that they can go out and accomplish great things in society. And that's why the education is loaded with Western history, European history, all of this. The difficult thing that I'm wrapping my brain about, because I actually did get Black education, Black history in the school systems of Brooklyn, New York. So I'm like, what? Like, these kids are not learning Black history? Like I feel, I'm just like floored by that. Black history is not Black history.
Right.
Black history is American history.
Yes.
And
yes.
so we're not a separate thing onto ourselves. We are Americans. We have been here for 400 years.
Right.
Okay. All right. Count with me. 400 years. Yep. Okay. We are integrated into every aspect of American culture. The way you talk, the way I talk, what we read, our music, our arts, everything, our history, opportunities, civil rights, women's rights. We are a huge part of that.
Yes.
So that we're still considering like Black history, like to me, is not even a thing. So absolutely, it just doesn't even seem like a negotiable point that our children all of our children need to know the history of Black Americans, because it's their history too. None of us are good if we don't understand this history. And one of the things that's difficult is advocating when people, like the table is not inclusive. So I don't know if there are Black people in leadership positions in Montgomery Township or on the Montgomery Board of Education.
Yep.
I tell you what, there should be.
Yep.
There should be, because
Phyllis Birch is a board member there now.
Okay, right, I know
I
Phyllis.
believe she's on the on this forum right now. I'm sure she's taking notes for you guys.
That's fantastic. Because we need to be at the table in order to advocate strongly, and we need support. But Black history is American history, and there is no way that it should not be on the table. Because if Black kids are not learning about themselves, and all we're learning is, A, we were slaves, B, we're victimized, that is not a good position to go off and take over the world and do great things. I hope you all understand that. So if on the other hand, white kids are learning that they were amazing, their ancestors were amazing, what they've done is amazing, everything that you've done is amazing and worthy of being put into history books and taught to everybody, that's going to produce a different type of child, okay, and a different experience. So yes, please, whatever I can do to help, I'm willing to help, because that is a non-negotiable point in America. In Montgomery in 2020, we are not teaching anything about Black history other than Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and slavery.
Yeah. Yes.
I would like to point out that I don't think we've ever had a Black History Month recognition thing ever since I've been in Montgomery. Like, I'm literally sitting here, I'm texting my friends asking, have we ever done anything for Black History Month, like ever? And I think there's a time where my friends and I coordinated wearing dashikis, and that was just between us. Like, I don't even think the school has, unless I'm wrong, but I really don't think we've even done that. And
so you don't know James Baldwin's or Weldon Johnson's Lift Every Voice and Sing?
I know that because that's part of my history. I don't think other people know that because that's not part of their history. I know the first verse. It's a long song, but I know it because that's something that I think I should know as a Black person. But other people definitely don't know that, and there could potentially be Black people in the town.
Everybody needs to read Maya Angelou and James Baldwin, and just and know history, even beyond the Black American experience, but the African experience. The same way you learn Western civilization, you should be learning global civilization, so that everybody understands that there was more to us than slavery, segregation, and victimization and struggle. It's not okay.
No, I completely agree. And I just wanted to address a comment I saw getting back to like curriculum, because that's something right now I know a few graduates, and I think we're going to try and incorporate some current students. We're trying to create a proposal for the Board of Ed with changing the curriculum, English and history. Because the amount of times I've been asked to read Shakespeare and all this stuff, where are these? I think we read Their Eyes Were Watching God. And like, that's the only book I can recall that was by a Black author, or even like a POC. POC meaning person of color. But also we need to remove bias from our teachers, because I recall being in a sociology class and being told that the Black Panthers were a terrorist group, and that's incorrect. And I think exactly that needs to be fixed with how our teachers teach us history, because you're teaching. I, as a Black student, I already know this, but these white students,
I don't know,
who aren't doing their own research, because this doesn't really affect them. This is information that they might be getting for the first time from a teacher, and that shouldn't be okay. So I think also we need to make sure that we're getting the right people to teach these students this history.
That's awesome, Shelley, because what you're speaking of and what Mrs. Johnson was speaking of is exactly systemic racism. Is teaching the children. I mean, you started off wonderfully, Ms. Johnson, with it's teaching the white children to be proud of their history. We start our history in America as slaves, as less than a human. We are not designed in this country to ever be proud of who we are, starting from our initial education in the school system.
Yep.
So I thought that was a very powerful connection that you guys made, and in terms of your comments. So yeah, it's it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So I appreciate everything that you guys are saying. It's just a difficult reality when you understand your history and you understand the country. It's very difficult to be hopeful in a lot of cases. And I was just sitting here thinking that a friend of mine earlier talked to me about like the Civil War, right? So we have the Civil War in this country, and people are, the reason why we have our the education, the Black history, or the American history the way it is today, is because they can create this history in any way they like. And if with the Civil War, the North won the Civil War, but today we still have Confederate statues, Confederate everything.
Yep.
Flags are flying. And, this friend it made a great point. They lost. They lost the war, but still are being recognized
and celebrated.
Yeah.
It's not right.
But it's just because they're white. It is what it is. It's a difficult thing, but it is what it is.
And what else isn't right is that a lot of people learn about this stuff in college. Like that's also is a problem. Like, I shouldn't have to learn this stuff because I decided to take an Africana Studies class. Not everyone wants to do that. So that also needs to be something that's addressed.
I agree.
And there are plenty of books. Before anyone wants to say anything, there are plenty of books for this can be taught at OHES. These kids can learn this stuff. It's a sad history. It might be sad, but there are ways that you can introduce students, like kids, to this. And as they grow older, it becomes more advanced. There's no excuse for why we can't teach students this. There can't be. And this isn't something that can happen in a day. This change is going to go over for probably a few years. But I think we need to start now.
I agree.
Definitely.
I mean, honestly, Shelley, 400 years of slavery is a blip in history. So like everyone else that has moments that are unfortunate, this should be really treated as a blip in history, and Africana Studies should be taught to everyone so that everyone can understand this is an unfortunate blip in history, but it does not define an American people forever.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys are reading this comment coming up, but they're mentioning something about some mandatory training and reading for Caucasian people working in town. They're talking about highlighting our conversation about the education curriculum in schools. Some saying it's too brief. It should be emphasized more. So I think we have something we can work on. And I would love to learn more from you guys. I'd love to work and help you or do whatever you guys need me to do in my power, in my capability. But I'm here more to learn and listen to you guys. I want to listen because I feel like I have not listened to you enough. And Maureen, I feel like I have not listened to you enough. And you and we have not had this conversation at all because we don't look at each other like that, right?
No.
We're family, we're sisters.
I look at people as humans, not as color.
Right. So,
I don't like labels.
Right, but I think that's
not
my
something
ignorance.
I grew up with. So.
Yeah, but I think that's my ignorance that I never asked you, and I never had a deep conversation about this with my other African American friends. So I love to get to know you guys more. I don't know how long we're gonna go on with this conversation tonight. It's 9:30. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. I'll send you my virtual hugs. Love to all. Right. If you want to talk to me, teach me, guide me, you can ask Sadaf. Sadaf can give up my number. My number is like public number anyway. I'm going to say good night here. Is that okay?
Good night, Minkio. Yes. So we can work on that reading list.
Yes, let's do that.
I think something really, really interesting came out of this conversation for me, which is even just our narrative and what we learn about way too America-centric. And that's part of the problem, that the only thing that matters is what happened on this land since, colonization, not even before that, not even the native history of the people who were on this land. And so it's a colonial history, basically. And we're still stuck in that colonial mindset that, these great explorers came, they established this empire and, discovered a new world that who knows who the people were that were there, but they're not relevant. And so in a way, that's something that really brings together everyone in Montgomery too, especially since we have so many immigrant community members as well. So, what are those students learning about global history or, the history of their cultures before coming here? Or is it just that the only thing that matters is that you're in America?
I think it would solve problems if we understood like global history.
Right.
It's a thing about American arrogance that doesn't serve us well.
Right.
World as we move into this global society. So
sure. And there's a reason why people all over the world are protesting right now, because they see the solidarity. They care. They believe that Black Lives Matter. And that's important, for us to know that we're part of a global conversation and global history. And that's definitely important to me too. I don't know if anybody has any final comments.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in too, that people around the world are also seeing how we are treating our own citizens. They're seeing, peaceful protesters gassed and shot with rubber bullets for a photo op. So it's terrible. I mean, it's just terrible. It's just terrible.
We certainly have a lot of work to do. I know I have a lot of work to do, but I'm again so thankful for everyone for joining to this evening, and I hope that many of these conversations continue, and I hope everyone does some soul searching on what they can do differently. And we do need to make actual changes, not just speak, but speaking helps, and I'm thankful to you all. So have a good night, everyone, and thank you for joining us.